Act 1. Our story begins in the morning room of Algernon Moncrief. The sound of a piano is heard in the adjoining room as Miss Lane, Algernon's maid, sets tea. Did you hear what I was playing, Miss Lane?
I don't think it's polite to listen, sir.
Oh, well, I'm terribly sorry for that. Oh, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Miss Lane, by the way, I noticed from your books on Thursday night, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that in a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? Oh, I ask merely for information.
Well, I attribute it to a superior quality of wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Oh, good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a pleasant state, sir. I have very little experience of it myself up to the present. I've only been married the once, and that was a consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Miss Lane.
It's a not very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Oh, very natural, I'm sure. Oh, the bell, Miss Lane?
Yes, sir.
Now, Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set a good example for us, then what on earth is the use of them? Well, they seem as a class to be entirely, have no idea of their own moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Oh, how do you do, my dear Ernest? What brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
Well, I believe it's customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Now, where have you been since last Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
Oh, yes, and who are these people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbours.
You got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. Oh, now, by the way, now Shropshire, that is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yeah, yes, of course. Hello? Why all these cups? Why the cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
Oh, perfectly delightful.
Yes, that's all very well. But I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of you being here.
May I ask why?
Oh, my dear boy, the way that you flirt with Gwendolen, why, it's perfectly disgraceful. I say it's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you came for pleasure. That I call business.
Oh, how utterly unromantic you are.
Well, I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one might be accepted. One usually is, I believe, and then the excitement is over. No, the very essence of romance, why, it is uncertainty. Now, do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. Those were ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you have been eating them all the time.
It's quite a different matter. She's my aunt. Here, have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
Well, very good bread and butter it is, too.
Oh, my dear boy, you need not eat as if you were going to eat all of it. Why, you behave as if you were married to Gwendolen already. You are not married to Gwendolen already, and, well, quite frankly, I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, women never marry the men they flirt with. They don't think it right.
Oh, that is nonsense.
Well, it is not. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over town. And in the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Well, my dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will of course have to clear up this whole matter of Cecily.
Cecily? Well, what on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Miss Lane, if you wouldn't mind, if you could bring me the cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here. Thank you, Miss Lane.
Do you mean to say that you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would have let me know. I have been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would. I happen to be a little more than usually hard up.
There is no use offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
Well, that is rather rude of you, Ernest, I must say. Thank you, Lane. Although, however, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that this thing isn't yours after all.
Well, of course it's mine. You have seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Well, yes, but this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. Now, you said you didn't know anyone by that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too, lives down in Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Now, but why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives in Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is a matter that certainly an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt, and that is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case!
Yes, but why does she call you, why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. Now, there is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should ever call her own nephew her uncle, that I can't quite make out. And besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I have ever seen in my entire life. Why, it is perfectly absurd, you saying that your name isn't Ernest. It is even on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B. for the Albany. I will keep this as proof that your name is Ernest, if you ever attempt to deny it to me, or Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Oh yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Now, do tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and now I am quite sure of it.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
Well, I'll reveal the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Now, produce your explanation.
Well, old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle through motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admiral governess, Miss Prism.
Yes. Now, where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly, the place He's not in Shropshire.
Yes, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. And now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, when one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. Indeed, it is one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce much to either one's health or one's happiness, in order that I may get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany and gets in the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
Oh, the truth is really pure, and it is never simple. What you are is a bunburyist. Why, in fact, I'd say you're the most advanced bunburyist I've ever known.
What on earth do you mean?
Well, don't you see? You have created a very useful younger brother called Ernest, in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable, permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go to the country whenever I like. Now, Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. Why, if it wasn't for his extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at the Carlton tonight, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
Yes, I know. You are absurdly careless about sending out invitations. Oh, it's quite foolish of you. Nothing bothers anyone so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
No, I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. Now, to begin with, I dined there on Monday. Once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations, thank you very much. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family and set down with either 2 women or no women at all. And in the third place, I know precisely who she will set me down next to tonight. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her husband across the table. It is not very nice. In fact, it is not pleasant. Indeed, it's not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. Why, the amount of women that are flirting with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It's simply washing one's own clothes out in public. And besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed bunburyist, naturally I want to talk to you about it. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I am going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It is rather a bore. So I am going to get rid of Ernest, and I strongly advise you to do the same with your your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Why, nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury, and if you ever get married, which, by the way, seems to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries not knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
It's nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and indeed she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Well, then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none. That must be Aunt Augusta now. Now, if I get her out of the way for, say, 10 minutes so that you can have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you at the Carlton?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Well, yes, but only if you are serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. Dare I say, it is so shallow of them. Oh, welcome, Aunt Augusta. Welcome, Gwendolen.
Well, dear Algernon, I hope you are behaving very well.
Oh, I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
But that's not quite the same thing. In fact, the 2 things rarely go together. Good afternoon, Mr. Worthing. How do you do?
Oh, now, dear me, Gwendolen, aren't you smart?
Oh, I'm always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. Oh, I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I will have that cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches that you promised me.
Oh, certainly, Aunt Augusta. Oh, good heavens, Aunt Augusta, but I'm terribly sorry. I'm afraid there were no cucumbers in the market today. I sent Lane down twice. Terribly sorry about that. I am greatly distressed that there are no cucumbers in this market, not even for ready money, Aunt Augusta.
Oh, it really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Oh, yes, I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
Well, it certainly has changed. From what cause, I, of course, cannot say. I have quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
Well, yes, I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, that, well, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
But I certainly hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
Oh, yes, I must say it is a great bore, and I need hardly say a true disappointment to me, but the fact is I've had a telegram come up that says my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. Oh, they seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Oh, yes, poor Bunbury. He's just such a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. I would be much obliged, Algernon, if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said whatever they had to say.
Oh, I shall speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta. That is, if he's still conscious. But I think I can promise he'll be fine by Saturday. Now, of course, the music is a great difficulty, but I'll run over the program I've drawn out for you. That is, if you'll kindly come with me into the next room.
Well, thank you, Algernon. It's very thoughtful of you. I'm sure that the program will be delightful after a few expurgations.
A charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
No, I thought so.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Oh, I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of that fact, and often I wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, and the fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I'm told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name Ernest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment that Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But, you don't really mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Oh, yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like all metaphysical speculations, has very little reference to the actual facts of life as we know them.
Yeah, personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care of the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
No, it suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say, I think there are lots of much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No, there is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill, it produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. Oh, she would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name, though, is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once.
What?
I mean, we must get married at once.
Married? Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely, you know that I love you, and you have led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage, and the subject has not even been touched upon.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it is only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn?
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you didn't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Oh, of course I will, darling! How long have you been about it? I'm shocked. Oh, I'm afraid, though, that you've had very little experience on how to propose.
Well, my own one. I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. Oh, my, what wonderful eyes you have, Ernest. I hope you will look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing!
Oh.
Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is
Mamma!
indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. There is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Oh, pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me down below in the...
Mama,
In the carriage, Gwendolyn!
no!
I feel bound to tell you, Mr. Worthing, that you are not down on my eligible list of young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I am quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Yes, I must admit I smoke.
Glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. Now, how old are you?
28.
Very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
Well, that is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from giving it up. That's all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land attached to it, about 1,500 acres, I believe.
A country house. How many bedrooms? That point can be cleared up afterwards. But you do have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Yeah, of course, I can get it back whenever I like, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She is a lady considerably advanced in years.
Oh, well, nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. Oh, I thought there was something. However, that could be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. Now, to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise to the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I don't really know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, I was found. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because, well, he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time.
Where did the charitable gentleman who had the first-class ticket find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag.
Yes, Lady Bracknell. I was in a handbag, a somewhat large handbag. Oh, with handles to it. a rather ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station.
Mr. Worthing, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, but has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is over.
I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance in a handbag. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning! For goodness sake, Algie, stop playing the ghastly tune! How idiotic you are!
Oh my. Oh, did not go off all right, old boy. You don't mean to say that Gwendolyn actually refused you?
As far as Gwendolyn is concerned, we are engaged. Now, her mother is perfectly unbearable. I never met such a gorgon! I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I am quite certain that Lady Bracknell is one. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't speak of your own aunt in that way before you.
Oh, my dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all.
You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years or so, do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. And no man becomes like his. That's his tragedy.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased and as well observed as anything in good society needs to be.
I am sick to death of cleverness. Everybody is clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. You know, the thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
Well, we have a few.
Oh, well, I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? The clever people, of course.
What fools?
Now, by the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about you being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the quite the sort of thing that one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
Well, the only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she's pretty, and to somebody else if she's plain.
Oh, that is nonsense.
Now, what about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Oh, before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Well, yes, but that is hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in the family. You would much better say a severe chill.
Oh, and you are certain a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of the kind?
No, of course not.
Very well, then. My poor brother Ernest was carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
No, but I thought you said Cecily was just a little too interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I am glad to say. She has a capital appetite, goes long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
Ooh, I should very much like to meet Cecily.
And I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty, and she is only just 18.
Oh, and have you told Gwendolyn yet you have an excessively pretty ward who is only 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are certain to become extremely great friends. Why, I'll bet you anything you like that half hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Well, women only call each other that after they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, my dear boy, if we want to get a good table at the Carlton, we really must be going. I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Oh, go to the theater.
Oh, no, I loathe listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
Oh, no, I hate talking.
All right, then, suppose we trot around the Empire at 10.
Oh, no, I can't bear looking at things.
Well, what shall we do then?
Nothing!
Oh, it's awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind work when there is no definite object at hand. Gwendolyn, what are you doing here?
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Now, Gwendolyn, I really don't think...
Algie! Pray, oblige me by kindly turning your back. Oh, Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Oh, few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out, and whatever influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. Now, your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
Good. How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn around now.
Oh, thanks. Already turned around.
And you may also ring the bell.
You will let me see to your carriage, my own darling.
Oh, certainly.
Lane, I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Miss Lane,
Hmm?
I shall be going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Miss Lane, I probably shall not be back until Monday. You can put up my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
Miss Lane, I do hope that tomorrow will be a fine day.
It never is, sir.
Miss Lane, you are the perfect pessimist.
Yes, I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Now there is a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
No, nothing. I'm just a little worried about my poor friend Bunbury. That's all.
If you don't take care, your friend Bunbury will get you into quite a serious scrape someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only thing in life that never is serious.
Oh, that is nonsense, Algy. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Well, nobody ever does. And besides, I love nonsense. The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire. We transition in Act 2 to the garden of Jack's Manor House, off in the country. Miss Prism is seated at the garden table with a pile of books as Cecily waters the flowers.
Oh, now, Cecily, surely it is more Moulton's duty to water the flowers than yours. Now, I'm placing your German grammar on the table. Pray, open it at page 15 and we will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I always look quite plain after my German lesson.
Now, child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I cannot think he is quite well.
Oh, now, your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanour is specially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. Oh, I know no one who has a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. And you must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow him to come here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm certainly sure you would. You know German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
No. I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Oh, indeed, I am not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. Now, you must put away your diary, Cecily. I really do not see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all of the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Oh. Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but memory chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't have possibly happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all of the novels that Moody sends us.
Now, do not speak slightingly of novels, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Was your novel ever published?
Oh, alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid. Oh, now, to your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
Oh, but I see a dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Oh, Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are well, I trust.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll through the park with you, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, Dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. I was thinking about that and not my German lesson when the director came in.
I hope, Cecily, you're not being inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
Oh, no, we do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is pleasure, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical metaphor drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both at evensong, no doubt.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
Ooh, oh, that would be delightful. Oh, now, Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. Now, the chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too exciting for a young girl. Well, off we go.
Ugh. Horrid political economy. Horrid geology and horrid German!
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany, W. It's Uncle Jack's brother! Did you tell him Mr. Worthing is in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden, and he said he was anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Well, ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. I suppose you had better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met a truly wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I am so afraid he will look just like everyone else. Ah, he does!
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
And you are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, well, I'm not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. No, you mustn't think that I'm wicked.
Oh, well, if you are not, then you've certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and really being good all this time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh. Well, then, of course, I have been rather reckless.
I am glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been rather bad in my own way.
Well, I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I am sure it must have been very pleasant.
Well, it's much more pleasant being here with you.
But I don't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
Oh, well, that is a great disappointment, for you see, I am obliged to go up on the first train Monday morning.
I think you had better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He is sending you to Australia.
No, Australia! No, I'd rather die.
Well, he said it in on Wednesday night that you have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh. Well, the accounts that I have received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world will be good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission, if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
Well, I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Well then, would you mind me reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you. I think you should try.
I will. I'm feeling better already.
Oh, well, you're looking a little worse.
Oh, that's because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Oh, why, thank you. Oh, won't you give me a rose?
A Michelle Niel?
I would much rather have a pink rose.
Why?
Well, because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it is quite right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Well, then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I've ever seen.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They're a snare any sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I would like to catch a sensible man. I should know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, a womanthrope never.
Well, the precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
Oh, that is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Oh, men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a married man not equally attractive?
No, no married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
But where is Cecily?
Oh, perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Oh. But Mr. Worthing, well, this is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother!
More shameful debts and extravagances,
Still leading the life of pleasure. Your brother Ernest dead?
Why dead?
Well, what a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincerest condolences. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Oh, Ernest, he had many faults, but it is a sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
Well, none of us are perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to drafts. Will the internment take place here?
No, he seemed to have expressed a desire to be buried en Paris.
In Paris? Oh, I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind in the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in this particular case, distressing. I preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, on days of humiliation and festal days. The last time I delivered it, was in the cathedral as a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop who was present was much impressed by some of the analogies I drew.
You mentioned christenings, I believe, Dr. Chasuble. Yeah, I suppose you know how to christen, all right? I mean, of course, yeah, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in the parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they do not seem to know what thrift is. Yeah.
But is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother, I believe, was unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
Well, people who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor. I am quite fond of children. No, the fact is, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
Oh, I don't remember anything about it. Of course, sir. I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. Not at all. The sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Oh, you needn't have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that's necessary, or indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so unpredictable. At what hour would you wish the ceremony to be performed?
Oh, I might trot round about 5 if that would suit you.
Oh, perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred recently on one of the outlying cottages of your own estate. Poor Jenkins the carter, a most hard-working man.
Oh, I don't see much fun being christened with other babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer in a house of sorrow. I would merely beg you to try not to be bowed down too much by grief. What seems to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
Well, this seems to me to be a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Jack, I am so pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes have you got on? Do go and change them.
No, Cicely, no.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you've had a toothache. And have I got such a surprise for you? Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Your brother Ernest!
What?
He arrived here a half hour ago.
That is nonsense. I don't have a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be as heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
Well, this is very joyful tidings.
Well, after we had all been resigned to his passing, his sudden death seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room? I don't know what it all means. I think it is utterly absurd.
Oh, my dear brother John!
Good heavens!
I've come down to town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble that I've given you. I intend to lead a better life from now on.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing would induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There's some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often.
Well, of course, I do admit that the faults were all on my side, but I must say, I think Brother John's coldness to me peculiarly painful. I expected a much more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it's my first time here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Well, I suppose I must then.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we might leave the two brothers alone together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism.
Algy, you must get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any Bunburying here.
Put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to your own, sir. I suppose that's all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
Well, I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
Oh, my duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree. And anyway, Jack, Cecily, ooh, such a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why don't you go up and change, don't you? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who is actually staying with you for a whole week in your own house as a guest. Oh, I call that grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or as anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train.
Well, I certainly won't leave, not so long as you're in mourning. Why, it would be most unfriendly. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. Oh, I should think it most unfriendly if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, only if you are not too long about it. I've never seen anyone take so long to get dressed and with such little result.
Well, at any rate, that is better than being always overdressed as you are.
Well, if I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you have got to catch the 4:05, and I hope you have a pleasant journey back to town. This Bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
Well, I think it's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily. That is everything. Oh, there you are.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
No, he's gone to fetch the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice ride?
No, he's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
Oh, I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman. For 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Now, I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Now, do you really keep a diary? I would give anything to look at it. May I?
No. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful, incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
Oh, no. I don't think you should tell me that you love me Wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense now, does it?
But now, Cecily, truly, I really do think.
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell it to come around next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
Well, I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anyone in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course! Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it'll be 3 months on Thursday.
Wait, but how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, Ernest, but I fell in love with you.
Oh, darling. And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of June last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to put the end to the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you here. And the next day I went out and bought this little ring in your name.
Oh, now did I give that to you? Oh, it's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. Oh, and this is the box in which I keep all of your dear letters.
Wait, my letters? But my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You hardly need remind me of that. I remember only too well I was forced to write the letters for you. I always wrote 3 times a week, sometimes oftener.
Oh, now do let me read them, Cecily.
No, I couldn't possibly. They'd make you far too conceited.
Oh, what a perfect angel you are.
You dear romantic boy.
You'll never break off our engagement, will you, Cecily?
I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Oh, yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but there has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. A pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
Yes, but my dear child, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
Oh, what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
But my dear, sweet, loving little darling, I really can't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. Why, it's not a bad name at all. In fact, I'd say it's a rather aristocratic name. But truly, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
Well, I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here, I suppose, is thoroughly experienced in the practice and the rites of ceremonials of the church?
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Yes, I must see him at once on an important christening. I mean, a most important business.
Right.
I will be back in a half hour. Mwah.
What an impetuous boy he is. I should enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in the library?
Mr. Worthing went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack and his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. Oh, what a very sweet name. Oh, something tells me that we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say, and my first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time.
Oh, I may call you Cecily, may I not?
Oh, with pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Well, then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Oh, perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity for my mentioning of who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose.
I don't think so.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Oh, really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, but, oh, it is strange he never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily, and I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know that you're Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly, Cecily,
I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candour, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 40 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. Oh, he is the very soul of truth and honour. But even men of the noblest, most possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of physical charms of others.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I am sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
That accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard of any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Now, of course, you are quite sure that this is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
Dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little country newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Oh, my darling Cecily, I think there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. Oh, the announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest. It'd be grand.
I am afraid you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me 10 minutes ago.
Well, it is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglements my dear boy may have gotten into, I will never approach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You, madam, are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Don't suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement. This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a fig, I call it a fig.
Well, I'm glad to say that I have never seen a fig. It is obvious that our social spheres are widely different.
Dilate the tea here as usual, miss.
Yes!
Yes, lay the tea as usual, Merriman.
Quite a well-kept garden you have, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, well, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you, Miss Cardew.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays.
Here you are.
Oh, thank you. Oh, God. Oh, God. You have filled my tea with lots of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I just trusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful, and my first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighbourhood.
Oh, Ernest, my own Ernest.
Gwendolyn, darling!
A moment. May I ask if you engage to be married to this young lady?
What? To Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
No, thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
Beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment. Ernest, may I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Gwendolyn! I mean, no. Why, what could ever put such an idea into your silly, pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
Mwah.
I thought there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. For the gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Oh, Algernon! Are you called Algernon?
I can't deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John.
Oh, God!
It seems a gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
Oh, my poor wounded Cecily!
Oh, there, girls. There.
All right.
Oh.
Oh, you will call me sister, won't you?
But there is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea.
Mr. Worthing,
There is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you.
Where is your brother Ernest?
We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest.
So it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life that I have ever been reduced to such a painful position. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother in my life, and I certainly have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
No, brother of any kind.
Never, not even of any kind.
Ah! Oh, God! Ah! I am afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is to be engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
No. Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are such cowards.
Go!
This ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and a perfectly wonderful bunberry it is. The most wonderful bunberry I've ever had in my entire life.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is now quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to do, dear Algy. And a very good thing, too.
Oh, well, your brother is a little off color, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked little custom was, and that's not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, I must say that you're taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
Well, I can see no possible defense at all for you deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. That is all. I love her.
Well, I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
Well, there is certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
Well, I don't think there's much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Oh, you can sit there, calmly eating muffins when we're in this horrible trouble I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cups. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it is perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except for food and drink. At present, I'm eating muffins because I'm unhappy and because I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
No, I really wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens! I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden?
No, but you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
Oh, that may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algy! I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having some dinner. It's absurd. I never go anywhere without dinner. Nobody ever does. No, except for vegetarians and people like that. And besides, I've just made engagements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 6:15 to have the name of Ernest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chalsable to be christened myself at 5:30, and I, naturally, will take the name of Ernest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest. It's absurd. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence at all that I was ever christened by anybody, and I think it is extremely probable I never was. The matter is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Yes, quite so. So I know that my constitution can stand it. Now, if you're not quite so sure about you having never been christened, oh, I must say I think it rather dangerous you venturing on it now. Oh, it could make you very unwell, and you can hardly forget that someone very closely connected with you was nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself that a severe chill isn't hereditary.
Well, it used not to be, I know, but dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in things.
Oh, that is nonsense. You are always talking nonsense.
No, Jack, you are at the muffins again. I really wish you wouldn't. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
Algernon, I have already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
Because I haven't finished my tea yet.
You are drinking my tea.
This is not your tea, and you are eating my muffins.
They are not your muffins.
Wow. We immediately transition into the manor house. Gwendolyn and Cecily have been watching the two men arguing from a window.
The fact that they did not follow us at once into the house as anyone else would have done seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins? That looks like repentance.
Oh, they're looking at us. What effrontery.
Oh, they're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Oh, certainly. It's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Oh, certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
Well, in order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
That seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending you have a brother? Was it that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me and as often as possible?
Certainly, Miss Fairfax.
Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory.
More than content with what Mr. Moncrief said.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. No, I mean no.
True. I had forgotten there are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Now, which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we both not speak at the same time?
Oh, an excellent idea. Will you take the time for me?
Certainly.
1, 2, 3. Your Christian names
are still an insuperable barrier.
That is all.
Will you take the time from me?
Mm-hmm.
Our Christian names?
Why, is that all?
But we are going to be christened.
This very afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
Oh, how absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes, where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned. Men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling!
Lady
Brack,
Bracknell!
Oh,
Gwendolyn, what does this mean?
merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Sit down, Gwendolyn. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin, I followed her at once by luggage train. Of course, Mr. Worthing, you will clearly understand that all communications between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
Oh, you are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Oh, no, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, well, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? Oh, when did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, yes, you see, Bunbury has exploded. I killed Bunbury. He died. Yes, poor Bunbury died this afternoon. I should say the doctors found out that Bunbury could not live, and so Bunbury died.
He seems to have had a great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I am glad, however, that he made up his mind at the last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we have finally gotten rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
Yeah, I am engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there's anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seems to me considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, who is Miss Cardew?
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervase Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire, NB.
Well, that sounds not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. So far, I am satisfied.
Well, I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and English variety.
Ah, a life crowded with incident. I see. Well, though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl, I myself am not in favor of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time approaches for our departure. We have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I had better ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh. About £130,000 in the funds, that is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell, so pleased to have seen you.
At the moment, Mr. Worthing, £130,000. And in the Cardew seems to me a most attractive lady, now that I look at her. Come here, dear.
Oh, yes.
Oh, dear, your hair. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair seems almost as nature might have left it, but we can soon alter all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a really marvelous result in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and after 3 months her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Kindly turn round, sweet child.
Yeah.
Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct possibilities in Miss Cardew.
Well, Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, and prettiest girl in the whole world. I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Well, dear child, you do know that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamed for a moment of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Oh, thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may address me as Aunt Augusta now for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon. To speak frankly, I'm not in favor of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out about each other's character before marriage, and I think that is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot legally marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask?
Oh, it pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew, but I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew, Algernon? Impossible. He is an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank. He then succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea, wherein he devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I do not intend to ever have a brother, not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided to entirely overlook my nephew's conduct to you. Cecily, come here, sweet child. How old are you, dear?
Well, I am really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
Well, you are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. And it seems it will not be very long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, any matter of importance.
Pray excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you again, but it is only fair to tell you that, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not legally come of age until she is 35.
Not seem to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have of their own free choice remained 35 for years.
Algie, could you wait for me until I was 35?
Oh, of course I could, Cecily. You know that I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait all that time.
Well, then what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature, I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But, my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, may choose for himself. Come, Gwendolen, we must be going. We've already missed 5, if not 6 trains.
Is everything quite ready for the christenings?
The christening, sir? Is not that somewhat premature?
Both of these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate christenings.
At their age? The idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned that that was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand, then, there's no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think, as things are now, it would be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
Oh, I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. I must return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to meet her.
Pray, allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be one of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of a repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the very picture of respectability.
Oh, it's obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madame.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
Oh, she approaches. She is nigh.
Oh, there you are. I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you there for 1 hour and 3/4.
Prism!
Lady Bracknell! Oh!
Where is that baby?
Huh?
28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Well, Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded on my memory, I prepared, as usual, to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I never can forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the perambulator, and I placed the baby in the handbag. Oh, no!
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Oh, Mr. Worthy, do not ask me.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag.
Well, I left it in the cloakroom at Victoria Station, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn,
Yes.
wait here for me.
If you are not too long, I will wait for you here all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble.
Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
Well, it seems to be mine. Oh, yes, there is the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Oh, and on the look, my initials. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than that handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes!
Mr. Worthing! I am unmarried. Oh.
Unmarried? Ugh. I do not deny that is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one set of rules for men and another for women? But I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are. Go.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
What? Algy's elder brother? Then I have a brother after all. I knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Algy, you young scoundrel. You will have to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never behaved to me like a brother in all your life.
Well, I did my best, old boy. However, I will admit I was out of practice.
Own? But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Good heavens, I had quite forgotten that point. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened, that is settled. Now, what name was I given? Pray, let me know the worst.
Being the elder son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
Oh. I cannot at the present moment recall what the general's Christian name was, but I have no doubt that he had one.
Algy, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
Oh, my dear boy, we were never quite on speaking terms. He died when I was only a year old.
Ah, yes, I remember now. The general was called Ernest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking it.
Oh, honest! I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you ever forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
My own Gwendolyn, at last!
So, my own Cecily, at last!
Letitia!
Free.
At last!
Honest, my own honest.
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. Our cast for The Importance of Being Earnest was
Rachel Tramp playing Miss Lane and Miss Merriman.
Troy Cox playing Dr. Chasuble.
Kathy Fisher playing Miss Prism.
Haley Buck as Cecily Cardew.
I am Eric Moodyman. I was Algernon Moncrief, as well as the director of this production.
Chelsea Caracosa as Gwendolyn Fairfax.
My name is Ben Green, and I was Jack and Ernest.
Lorraine Barkley, and I am Lady Bracknell.
We would like to thank you for joining us for tonight's performance. If you would like to make any donations so that we can get rights for future shows, there is a Venmo and PayPal link on our page. I would like to thank Sarah Ward, who was our most recent donator. Thank you very much, Sarah. And feel free to follow us at COVID-19 to Places on Facebook for updates of all upcoming performances in the future. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.